Well, this weather we've had is, needless to say, not to be expected this time of year. I didn't expect to have 70 degrees on December, 12th, 13th, something like that. Anyway, it's amazing, and it's kind of nice, but I also enjoy, I see Joy's got her sleeveless on. I mean, and so it's just different. What can we say? So I found a little story that could maybe bring a little deeper and lighter understanding to it at the same time. So one day in early September, the chief of a Native American tribe was asked by the tribal elders if the winter was going to be cold or mild. The chief asked his medicine man, but he too had lost touch with the reading the signs from a natural world around the Great Lakes. In truth, neither of them had any idea about how to predict the coming weather. However, the chief decided to take a modern approach, and the chief rang the National Weather Service in Gaylord, Michigan. Yes, it's going to be a cold winter, the meteorologist said. Consequently, he went back to his tribe and told the men to collect plenty of firewood. A fortnight later, the chief called the Weather Service again and asked for an update. Are you still forecasting a cold winter, he asked. Yes, very cold, the weather officer told him. As a result of this brief conversation, the chief went back to the tribe and told his people to collect every bit of wood they could find. A month later, the chief called the National Weather Service one more time and asked about the coming winter. Yes, he was told, it's going to be one of the most cold winters ever. How can you be sure, the chief asked. The weatherman replied, because the Native Americans of the Great Lakes are collecting all the wood that they can. So there you go. So there's how our weather's forecasted, in case you want to know. So toss it all out, right? So it sort of feels like that this year anyway. But anyway, this week was a quick trip to West Virginia for me and my sister, Molly. She came up last Sunday evening. We had Terry's wonderful concert, and then took off Monday morning and landed there in the afternoon. And by the way, not to digress, but we made a stop. And if you're ever driving 23, I don't know why you would unless you were going to West Virginia, but 23 north, and in Virginia, there's a place called Natural Tunnel. Have you ever been there?
Yes.
Well, it is, they call it the Grand Canyon of the East. And it's unfreaking believable. You can't, my sister's really scared of heights, so she was like, yeah, and they do have very substantial rails, and then they have a lover's leap up at the top. But it's, we walked the back trail up to the top, but it's magnificent, and you can't believe it's just off this road. There's a sign, Natural Tunnel, and you get there. So it's really, really worth seeing. If you're ever there, it's worth the detour. And it's not a difficult walk, so it's something worth doing. So anyway, the reason we were going to West Virginia was, as you all know, a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was up there with my mother who is ill, and thankfully she's doing much better. Surprisingly so. She looked good. She's not moving too well, but her lungs are clear, and she looks good and seems to be happy and comfortable. But my father retired from his position at a bank, the community bank, Huntington Federal Savings Bank, after 67 years of service. So it was a, needless to say, a mixed feeling about it. And we were a little nervous. My dad is, you know, people who know him, he's like a solid, strong guy, but you know, he gets very emotional sometimes. And I wasn't sure if when they had a retirement party for him after his last board meeting at the bank, and I didn't know if he was going to break down or not. But he stayed strong and walked it. My sister pushed him in the wheelchair to the meeting or to the party, and all the bank employees and past employees and friends were there, and family, and it was really, really sweet. It was, I cannot tell you how much love that was being felt and expressed in that day. It was just beautiful and wonderful. They even had a representative from the governor's office who read a proclamation for him from the governor, which was wonderful, and the media was there. So it was a cool day, and it was really, he is deserving of this. And when I look back, I'll proudly say that, wow, what a person he was, and his service, his dedication, to making the world better. I mean, he's got a list this long, and just selfless service, and it was really expressed there that day by so many people. Because bankers these days, they don't get the best. They don't get the bankers and lawyers, but bankers especially. But just to give you an example, there was a article in the paper that one of the things the reporter wrote about 2 times, I believe, in the article, was that my father never allowed for an answering service to take place at the phone. So in other words, when you call the bank, you always get a person. What a concept, huh? And so it's those little things that we take for granted. But it really is a wonderful, it was a wonderful trip down memory lane, and I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we could bring some of this back? Well, back in he fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and people ask him if he ever wants to go back to Europe. They've asked him over the years. He goes, nope, been there enough. Did that once already, and he certainly was complete with that. And of course, that's, he went there, he left college, came back, and worked at the bank, and been doing it for 67 years. Well, another thing that was very interesting is my mother has dementia. And, in some respects, she's right there, and I know if you've dealt with dementia, you sort of understand how it works. Some points, she can pull up things like, so clear and concise. And then other things, I was showing her pictures from the party because she couldn't go. And she goes, is that your father? Where's your dad in this picture? So it was, for some reason, the current events are not so clear, but, get her to sing a song. She was an opera singer, she can do it in a minute. Well, one thing, before my sister and I took off to come back here on Wednesday, in bed, she was coming in for lunch or breakfast, and she asked me if I would pull up the poem Invictus on my computer. And I said, sure. And to be honest, I had read the poem when I was a child. As a matter of fact, I was the worst student ever. And I was a terrible student, I'll just tell you right now. People say, oh, you're so smart. I said, well, don't talk to my teachers about that, because they'll beg to differ. But anyway, I can remember in 7th grade, my literature teacher used to have us memorize poems. And I blew that off, because all I wanted to do was get out of school and get to the golf course, and that was my life. I didn't want to memorize poems. But I remember that this was one of them, Invictus. And it was a short Victorian poem by English poet William Henley. And I was looking, well, what does Invictus mean? In Latin, it's an adjective for unconquered, unsubdued, and invincible. And I was like, oh, that was beautiful. So, yes, invincible. Mm-hmm. And so my mother said, pull it up. And so I started reading the poem. And we're sitting at the dining room table, and she's in her wheelchair, my dad's in his wheelchair. And all of a sudden, all I had to do was read the first sentence, and the two of them just joined in. And was. So, and word for word, it was like, and my sisters and I are like, wow, what just happened here? And they're one of their caretakers, we're all just like, it was so powerful. I can't. And I was going to read you the poem. And I think I still can. And so, yeah, see, this is how my dad gets. He gets all teary, whatever. But anyway, the poem is this. And it's out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Oh my God. You did it.
So the last two sentences, it's what we're always talking about here. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And, I'm thinking, and as I'm reading this, they were Depression children and World War II, Battle of the Bulge, and, all this. And yet they've, it speaks really of... love, and it's what really it's. This is actually a happy, wonderful thing. It is, because it's the way I see it is, was it Tom Brokaw who wrote The Greatest Generation? Was it Tom Brokaw? Yes. And it is. There are so many aspects and attributes from that generation. I think that I realize, wow, we're softies. We just, we think we're pretty cool and, got all this going on. But there's so much that's been lost, and it's that faith and that trust and knowing that you're the master of your soul. And we've, this is a time, I think, for us to really remember that. Because we are, I think, at a wave of great shift and change on our planet. I do believe that. And I don't think it's a bad thing. But I do think that it's time for us to understand that regardless of what's happening out there, that we are the masters of our destiny, truly. It's not anyone's fault. It's not about blame. It's not about out there. And this poem, the movie Invictus was the story of Nelson Mandela's life. And he read this poem every day. He stated this aloud. And of course, it was actually, I did a little more poking around, and it says, in a speech to the House of Commons on 9th of September 1941, Winston Churchill paraphrased the last two lines of the poem, stating, "We are still masters of our fate, and we are still captains of our souls." In Casablanca, it was also read to Humphrey Bogart, referring to his power as in Casablanca. It was also, interestingly enough, before his execution, Timothy McVeigh recited the entire poem. And it was recited, the last stanza was recited by President Obama at the end of his speech at Nelson Mandela's memorial. It's been read all over, and it's so powerful. And so it's just, I think about us as, I was reading, I've been reflecting and thinking, there's a post on Facebook, and I will paraphrase it lightly, but it says, "Man, I have been through a lot of," I'll just say that four-letter word, and it has a person. Sometimes I just sit back and think, I've been through a lot of stuff. And I think we can all say we've been through a lot of stuff this life. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, wow, but we survived. That's the good news, All these things have happened in our lives, and ups and downs and good and bad and painful and joyful. And we've all been through it, but we've all survived. And, the memory that I always like to go back to, or the belief or the idea, is that regardless of what's happening, I can choose peace. That is my mastery. That I can actually say, this is not my reality. Peace is my reality. Love is my reality. And that if I can stay from that, in that state of being, I'm not allowing myself to get caught up in the turmoil and the challenges of life. And it's very possible, because I think that we can all say that we've had some ugly times in our life, but somehow we made it. And these can make us stronger, and they can make us more compassionate and more loving. we can use everything as a means to be greater and stronger, or we can use it as a means to tear us down. And every day we are beginning anew. Every day is I'm reborn, and not even every day, every moment we're reborn. So if you had a bad incident 5 minutes ago, let it go. Move on, because in this moment, all is divine and all is well. And, I think that we're at a point here where, we're being bombarded by all of this media about hatred and ISIS and all kinds of stuff. And, boy, I could go into a dialogue about that, but I don't think I need to. And it's real easy, if we're not careful, to get sucked into all that. But again, I think that we together are choosing to take that road less traveled. That road that is one saying, I don't have to go down that path anymore. This is the path I'm choosing to take. And this path is the one where love prevails, where I do honor my brother as myself, all of them. Not some of them, all of them, including the ones that aren't really so loved and revered right now in the world. But, we're all God's children. We're all one family. And it's up to us to really be that example, take that road less traveled and of peace. And Susie, you'll like this. Yogi Bhajan, I think you may have even posted this. But again, a Sikh, what would you call him, a Sikh master?
Well, he was a Sikh.
He was
a Sikh, but he was a Kundalini yogi.
Okay.
Master.
Well, okay, thank you. So a Sikh master. And so anyway, he talks about the laws of prosperity. And this is so true. And it's when we talk about prosperity, it's not about oodles of money, even though that's wonderful. But it's really, I think a prosperous life is one where we are in command of our soul, and we are at peace, and we are compassionate, and we are loving. And he says 3 simple steps for these laws. Be kind to everyone. Speak not ill of others, and speak not ill of yourself. And just those 3 not so small statements there, or concepts, can literally give us the whole entire universe. It's not about acquiring, I think we're all at the point where it's not about acquiring stuff and wealth and all of this, but really creating a world of kindness and peace and compassion. And to remember, this is kind of an interesting thing. Driving up 23 to West Virginia, it's a pretty drive, but it's tedious. I mean, it goes on. It's 300 miles and it's all day. And anyway, you drive through 5 states, North Carolina, then I end up in Virginia, then, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And 5 states and 600 miles or 300 miles. Anyway, one of the towns you go through is called Pound, Virginia. And do you know who was born in Pound, Virginia? No. Come on, no one knows. Napoleon Hill, of all things. And and this is like the most remote, it's amazing. Like, how did he ever get out of there? It's like, talk about think and grow rich. He did it, And, but I found that, and my sister pointed that out to me because her car broke down one day there, and she said that, look at that, they have like a big banner that has Napoleon's picture on it. It's painted. What do you call that? Sort of wall art. A mural, thank you. And anyway, I said, he's from here. And so somehow he used his thinking and got out of there, yes, and made a big impact on the world. Now, it's actually beautiful there. It's just remote. But he goes on to say, every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And when we look at this, it's the only thing that makes something good or bad is our thinking about it, our judgment. And if we look at this, every situation in our life, how can I use this to be stronger? How can I use this situation to be more compassionate and more loving? And what happens, it does become a great opportunity to expand consciousness, or we can use everything as an opportunity to project blame and separation and hatred. It's a choice. It's a personal choice. One is very powerful and strong, and one is very weak. And neither is better than or worse than, but I love the quote from A Course in Miracles that says, "Delay is meaningless in eternity, but tragic in time." Meaning that there's really nothing I can do to change my essence, no matter how bad or how good I am. There's nothing I can do to change about it, or change it. But the good news is that, I can delay it, but I can't change it. And what I'm not changing is that awareness of who I am in truth, which is only love. So it's about recognizing that everything, good or bad, in judgment sense, is an opportunity. George Carlin, another great mystic, he says, we drink too much, smoke too much, spend recklessly, laugh too little, drive too fast, get too angry, stay up late, get tired, read too little, watch TV too much. We've multiplied our possessions but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. We've learned how to make a living but not a life. And we've added to the years of our lives, but not life to the years. And, it's again, the Dalai Lama made a very similar statement, another master. He said, we're spending so much energy looking for things externally, trying to make this work and that work and get all these plates spinning. But if we're not nurturing our soul, what good is it? And it's depleting us. So you get to be 91 years old and you've had great success, but if you haven't done it with love, what good is it really? And so I think that's a really strong message. And that's what really hit me with my parents. I'm like, wow, even though they've been so active and done wonderful work, they've never done it as a need of getting something. They did it from their heart. It came from the inside out. They weren't chasing that hamster wheel. So it's a whole different perspective that I think we've somewhat lost, but we're choosing to plug back into. And one thing that I really want to encourage everyone to participate in with us is, starting in January, is this meditation. Take that hour, 9 a.m. every morning, either with us or in your home, and just be still. Be in the stillness. No mantras, nothing. Just be still and know that you're God, that you are love and you're loved. And I know that through that experience, I shared last week, it was one of the most powerful times of my life when I used to join the ministry at Unity in Florida every afternoon for years. And didn't say a word. You walked in, you sat down, you meditated, you got up and you left, and that was it. And it was more powerful than I realized until recently. That's why I'm so excited we're going to be doing that here. And Michael Beckwith says, if you're not consciously directing your life, you will lose your footing and circumstances will decide for you. And I think that we have to be aware, we have to be conscious, we have to be present in what we do. Otherwise, we're going to be directed from out here. It's time that we live from the inside out, live from love. Such a perfect time for you guys to be here today, because it is so important for us to get community minded and oriented and take care of. We are our brother's keeper, and we're here to mutually support each other. And yesterday we had a really great situation. Didn't seem like it for a while. RV story, quick. Okay, we're winterizing. That means you have to dump. That means you have to run the pipes with antifreeze. Well, we get to the RV, the battery dead as a doornail, dead. So then we tried jump start it. We did finally, after charging it for forever, we got it like 200 yards over to O'Reilly Auto Parts. They changed the battery. We're with our friends, Walter and Jenny, and Ellen was going to tip the guy who put in the battery. We're sitting there in the parking lot, and he's taking this battery out, and he's just as friendly as can be. And he wouldn't take the tip, and he goes, but what I'd like you to do, this is a person who's living in love, and it's amazing. He goes, instead, I won't take that, but I'm asking you to find somebody who needs a meal or is down and out this holiday season and help them out. And he said, you can do that. That would be better than any tip you could ever give me. And we're all like, done. That's cool. We'll do that. And so those are the little things that make the big differences. We can all do this. I mean, it's nothing. And if you only have $5, $10, it doesn't matter. A can of food, every little bit can make a difference in the life of someone. You know, it's not a lack of resources that keep us, you know, in challenges. It's really a lack of love and awareness and presence and honoring of each other. So it's up to us to really move forward in the spirit of the greatest generation, which is to understand that truly we are the master of our fates and we are the captains of our soul. And I know that together we are creating great things for our world and each other. And I'm blessed to have you all in my life and in my family. Namaste.